Well, the camera will just be you guys.
Okay, so we're ready to go. No, not yet. Okay, ready to go? Thank you very much for your patience. Jake, continue. You were just in the ready to read a statement there from Saugeen Valley, I think.
Sure. So this is from a resident. This was a public comment that came in after the agenda was circulated from a landowner at the base of the slope behind where the proposed development would be. I have a few concerns with rezoning and severing of the Walden lot directly above me. First, the inspection of the slope was done February 22nd, 2024. The temperature was an unseasonably 5 degrees Celsius. At that time of the year, the ground is frozen, so not as much seepage/erosion would be noticeable. I invite any inspectors to conduct a survey this month or any time in the spring. The seepage is so bad right now that I sank numerous times into the muck above my ankles. The catch basin in the report is on my property and was installed when we built in 2007. It was installed to collect the constant seepage of water so it can be accumulated and redirected to a storm sewer. 2 drainage ditches were built to collect the seepage from both north and south on my property. There's so much continuous seepage that these ditches get filled and the water then is not directed to the catch basin. I'm constantly redigging these. 2. The current designation of Lot 21 is EP. What justification is there to warrant a change to residential? What plan has been provided to guarantee that the water level and runoff will not be affected? In the WSP report, their recommendation said, quote, based on the results of our current reconnaissance, the subject lower portion of the slope analysis is considered to be marginally stable in its existing configuration due to the superficial erosion noted, end quote. Their definition of marginally stable is slope has undergone discernible changes in geometry resulting either from toe erosion or from regression of sliding surfaces up the slope. Slope is very steep, but typically vegetated with small trees, shrubs, and/or grasses. 3. How will water be controlled to avoid it going over the slope? Presently, there is grass and shrubs on the upper portion of the lot to absorb some of it. Once the structure is built, the grassy area is removed. Rainwater then goes where? 4. The mature trees and brush are on my property. I have not removed any as was recommended by the SPCA in 2007. I cannot say the same for what was done to the Walden property when they built. My concern is they will remove any existing plants holding the soil in place. Lot 21 drains over the slope to the west as well as the slope to the south. Neither lots are owned by the owner of Lot 21, but both lots have the potential of being negatively affected by the water runoff. Dave. So that comment again, just was reading it into the record as it came in beyond the cutoff date. So the SPCA have been provided with all of the public concerns that we received through the process. They confirmed that the report that was done, the slope stability report that was done by the engineer is consistent with their review and that it did not alter their conclusions to support the EP zone amendment. They did provide me with further information, however, noting that controlling the flow over a steep slope is a part of their permitting process, which comes further down the line in tandem with the building permit. But given that there is the potential for creating a lot, they provided wording that could help act as a condition for the severance. And a unique feature here is that while their solution would usually be to direct flows to the municipal catch basins, municipality, the CBO noted that wouldn't be supportable here given the infrastructure along Penetango Row. So to ensure that we are not put in the position of creating a lot that can't be built on, the proposal is to create a condition of severance. So just to remind council, before you tonight is the rezoning. What would come later to the county is the severance portion. So I just want to read out this draft condition because it's not featured in the report. What the SVCA is proposing is, quote, the following is prepared to the satisfaction of the municipality of Kincardine and Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority, that an engineered site grading and drainage plan demonstrate that surface, eaves trough, and footing tile drainage is directed away from the adjacent slope, and that a geotechnical engineer confirm that the site grading and drainage plan will not increase surface drainage to the slope, nor increase groundwater flows to seeps downslope. So this document would be required of the applicants before the severance is certified by the county in the future. With that, our recommendation is for approval of the rezoning with the opportunity to address drainage and slope stability issues further down the planning process. And that concludes my report.
Okay, are there any questions from council regarding the technical aspects of the report? Technical aspects. Councillor Stanoff-Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I'd just like to ask a clarifying question from the report. When did Saugeen Conservation Authority add that clause? Because when you read the report, it sounds like they accepted the engineering's comments. Was it after the neighbor who brought up his own restraints that have been put on his property? Like, I'm trying to understand how something changed that was in a report that was already submitted to us as a council. Like, I'd like to understand what made them add that clause, because they clearly didn't have it when they responded initially to us.
I can't speak on behalf of the SVCA. It was through, as I was forwarding these comments as they were coming in, I was trying to get an answer to it struck me as a challenge of the lot. If the water can't go down the slope, but it also can't go up the slope, what is the proposed solution? They emphasized that they were aware of the issue and that their permitting process would deal with this. Through that communication, the suggestion was that this should be addressed before the lot is created. So it wasn't in the report. I can't speak to their motivation for providing me that draft wording.
So the motion before us tonight is only to amend the zoning of the property. It is not to create the lot. That is a whole separate process that would occur should the applicant desire to move forward with it. Like, we're not agreeing to the permit or the severance or anything. All we're doing is allowing the zoning to be changed that could permit a future severance if all the conditions are met. Okay,
that's right.
There will be another opportunity for council questions. If you have technical questions about slope or water flow or something like that, we can, but if it's a broad comment, there is still another opportunity for council. Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you. One of my questions is, so if we're expanding or changing the zoning to R1, right now within R1 zoning, you could have up to 3 units on a lot. So one of the pieces where Saugeen Valley is suggesting that they want that language in about the geotechnical studies prior to the lot being severed, how would it impact it if, for example, the county doesn't approve the severance, but the lot, we approve the rezoning? Could they build a secondary unit on that location? Or how would we support ensuring that that geotechnical requirement is there regardless?
Right. So that they would be able to submit an application just through the building department for, even if it was a shed, if the zoning was changed, based on what SVCA has relayed, it would always be any development on that property is subject to the conclusions of the geotechnical report that was done through their permitting process.
Thank you, through you. So just to clarify, that last bit there from Saugeen Valley that talks about the geotechnical studies, that goes in addition with the zoning. It's not, it doesn't kick in once the severance has happened. It would be in place tonight.
It would be in place because that their permitting process is already applies to that property. There's a buffer from the EP zone, even if the EP zone is reduced, which extends 15 meters from an EP zone. So that would cover the whole property. So any development in that area would still require a permit, which their internal processes, as they've relayed to me, they would tie it to that geotechnical report.
Councillor Prenger, please.
Thank you. Just, if you don't mind, I'll just add to that to answer Beth's question. Is that okay? So if you take a look at this as an example of it's already zoned the way they're trying to, like you are permitted to do, to get a building permit on this lot, then what they're saying is SVCA would require the engineering report anyway. So yes, it technically applies once it's attached as a requirement of the severance, but in theory, even if we didn't require it, they could, because it would be part of their process. But I do have a question, if you don't mind, and I'm sorry to do this to you, but could you please reread their condition? Because there's two parts to it, and I kind of missed a point in the first part.
So the following be prepared to the satisfaction of the municipality and the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. First, that an engineered site grading and drainage plan demonstrate that surface, eaves trough, and footing tile drainage is directed away from the adjacent slope, and that, second, a geotechnical engineer confirm the site grading and drainage plan will not increase surface drainage to the slope nor increase groundwater flow to the seeps downslope.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I like this addition of this condition. It's actually something I was going to ask for tonight if there wasn't one. What I don't understand though is if during construction hydrological issues come up in terms of disturbance creates a major issue, like hits some kind of water source in the slope, the drainage plan wouldn't have planned for that. So how do they address that issue, considering the information in the current engineering report and information from neighboring landowners and how bad this area is for that? It's a real possibility that could happen. So I'm just wondering how they would address that if it came up during construction.
I'm sorry, I can't answer that. That would be a technical question for SVCA. I would be happy to put it to them, provide an answer at a later date.
So just clarify, that wouldn't be our municipality and our planning department addressing that. It would be the SVCA addressing it during construction.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure.
That was also on my list here, what the responsibility of Saugeen Valley is regarding the water. You know, what is their responsibility and what is ours? So that's a good point to clarify, actually. Anyway, okay. Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And actually, this question's to Adam. I was a little surprised by this comment that the municipality of Kincardine that collecting surface water from the property and directing it to the municipal storm sewer system is not acceptable. Adam, can you sort of explain? This is going to reduce our development along Penetangor. Is our system underperforming or not capable of adding any more houses?
I'm just looking through the report here, Councillor Stewart. just to find that exact wording.
It's on page 404 from the Saugeen Valley under C. It's about third or fourth line. I was a little surprised by us saying it's not acceptable to accept any storm water from that property. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
done. It could be done later.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I follow you. I see where that is. If you could leave that with me as a takeaway, what I can tell you that typically we do provide private drain connections. But offhand, I don't know if we did provide a comment. So I'll take that away and I'll get back to council on that.
Thank you, Adam.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify something because I hear some subtle words. We're not being asked tonight to rezone a property that's zoned EP to R1. We're being asked to approve an amendment that will adjust the boundary between the part of the property that's zoned EP and the rest of the property that's zoned R1. That's correct? Yeah. So, because here's some like loose language about, you know, the property zoned EP1. No, a part of it is zoned R1 and the rest of it is zoned EP. The other is I look at it's slightly future. A lot of these questions about how this would be addressed, I look at 308 Penetangor Row and where it sits. And it would have had to probably go through a similar process when it was built because it's being built it's kind of on that boundary between or very close between R1 and EP1. So whatever processes had to exist in order to ensure that it was built safely and standards were applied to would apply to a severed property if it gets to that point where it's severed. So
Jake, so there was two questions in there. One was affirming the purpose of the application, and one is the consistency of standards regarding construction. You know, one lot abutting to the next. Do you want to comment on either of those questions, please?
Sure. So first, you're right. There is residential zoning on the property. It's a question of moving the boundary. Your second point, there is a difference in what's being considered in that that was replacement of an existing structure and there was no planning application needed. So certainly it would have gone through Saugeen Valley's permitting process, but it didn't, you know, it didn't come to council. There wasn't a public process, and there may have been considerations of what the existing footing was versus, so it may have been a question of replacement. I don't know that for sure. I just wanted to raise that is a possibility. It's very stable slope, or steep slopes are very site specific and they can change meter to meter. So I don't know exactly what happened on that property because it wasn't a planning application. Just wanted to provide that context.
Okay, we have opportunity at this point for the applicant. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Williams, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, I might be asking the same question as Councillor Hinchberger, but in a different way. I'm not sure. My question was if the EP zone was reduced for any of the other properties along that stretch at any point, and perhaps that's not something that you would know off the top.
I don't know necessarily the whole stretch. For the existing house on 308, it was not changed, and that is because it was replacement of an existing. So the SVCA does have policies that may permit you to go through their permitting process in an EP zone if it's replacement of an existing, because what we're talking about here is creation of an entirely new lot. SVCA requested that the EP zone itself be amended before.
Okay. All right, we have opportunity at this point to hear any presentations from the applicant or their agent. Welcome. Would you like to comment or respond or Just happy to be here and if you could step to the microphone there, just for the public record, just here comes our technical wizard to get things going for you. Just say your name just for the record. And
for the record, my name is Brad Walden. I'm the applicant of the proposed severance. I'm just here to hear everybody's comments. I'm just trying to go through the proper channels here. It's been engineered. We've done the surveys. We've put in all the proper documentation. So I hope that you guys will see that the engineers and the have done their work and trust in them. That's all I really have to say. Thank you.
okay, thanks very much, Brad. At this point, we have opportunity for any members of the public to speak in support of the application. Is there anyone here that would like to speak in support of the application? We also have opportunity for anyone who would like to make a presentation in opposition to the application. Is there anyone here who would like to make a statement? Make comment? Yes, if you would come to the microphone, please. Just say your name for the record.
Sorry, is that me? I have my hand up, but I'm virtual.
Yes, we do know that there is a Zoom presentation here. We have not forgotten you. Thank you.
But sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Norcliffe.
The name's Glenn Norcliffe. I have a property below where this application has been made for. I've owned our property since 1976, 50 years. And I'm one of two people who still not passed. One of two people who were the group that purchased from CN Railway this property. When the property came up for sale and was purchased by this group, the decision had to be made how to subdivide this property. And SVCA was consulted, and it was decided that the property would be divided and we would each contribute a percentage according to what a realtor assessed the property, each individual piece, to be worth. The property at the top, owned by Mr. and Mrs. Abra, which is the property in question, was allocated zero cost. And it was allocated zero cost because SVCA said it wasn't developable. And at that point, I presume SVCA made some submission. So I would ask the planner to see what he can find on the decision made that this particular lot owned by the Abras would be given zero value because it was not developable. I made a submission to SVCA raising a number of comments and concerns about the submission by the technical submission by the planning people. And I just want to run through those briefly. I believe that has this commentary been received by members of council? But just let me summarize, since you've already got it before you. The report, as we've already noted, was done when the ground was frozen. So some of the things that are visible now were not visible then. The slope is steeper than the engineers asserted, and I've provided photographic evidence that there are several points where the slope is 35 degrees, which is a lot steeper than the 16 to 26 degrees that the technical report states. The soil stratigraphy of this whole area is underlain not just by gravel and sand, but also by till, glacial till. So we don't know what's under this property, but it could well be glacial till, which creates problems of aquifers and water seepage. There is seepage from the slope at the bottom, and I have had to construct a berm to divert the water flowing from the numerous springs at the bottom of the hill. The vegetation on the slope cover is rated by the people who did the technical report as as mature trees. In fact, the slope is active. It's sliding down the hill, if you like. It's soil creep is the term we use. And part of the vegetation has slipped down the hill with it, including uprooted cedars. Also, part of the slope is not as well vegetated with heavy shrubs or forested. There's a photograph showing that the slope in places is small shrubs and bare grass. So the slope is not as vegetated the way that the report claims. Proximity to a watercourse, well, if we count the current flow going through Mr. Dunlop's property as water flow, then there is water flowing through into his catchment basis, and it's going on continuously. It's not just in spring, it's continuous summer and winter. This is an active slope, and there's been previous movement on this slope, which is why I question the report of the engineers. And I think that SVCA needs to review that. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Appreciate that. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to this report? Yes, please just come to the microphone again, please, sir.
Thank you. My name is Bob Grisdale. I live south of that property, a couple 100 meters, 100 meters or so south of it, the first built property south. It's relevant. I guess my question is around. I'm not against development because I developed there 4 years ago. We built a house on that slope. The slope had already been. We purchased it from someone who had prepared it, taken the trees down, and whatever. So we went through the process that we're talking about here. We saw the initial geotechnical survey that was done, that was spoken of in 2009. We spoke with Saugeen Valley, and we had to follow the recommendations of that in terms of our build. The point that I think is with me, just as I have a question of, is the inconsistency between this slope zone, the protection zone, or the setback zone, which has been moved in this application, recommended from 18 feet to 9 feet, I believe. I think that's 3 meters to 2 meters, or to 1 meter. Yeah, 3 meters to 2 meters. So I question that because we're on the same slope virtually. Our policy was to follow all of the regulations. Even our builder didn't want to do that and thought it would be easier if we just took the whole thing down and we'd get approval eventually. But we followed it. And I was interested to see that this recommendation was put forward by an engineering company and the geotech company, the same actual two companies that provided information that we had to adhere to, which was odd to me, in that it's the same companies providing information with regard to what is an appropriate setback. So the setback we followed was 18 feet. I kind of wonder if what's happened in the last year, if it's safe to go back less than that, if that happens to all of the properties along there, and why it was done. So I think that's the only thing. Yeah. I think it was someone else asked that question around, one of the council members asked a question around, we followed the same guidelines to the original, to the Walden property around the 18 foot. I didn't know there was a prior building on that that makes it a bit of a different issue. Ours was completely open, but we followed those same things 4 years ago, those same recommendations. So now we've got, as of a geotech study, something quite different. And we were told in the geotech study that we saw when we purchased the property that it was an
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. No. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak in opposition to this application? Oh, yes. Tessa, you are online. Welcome to our meeting this evening. If you would like to make your presentation now, that would be excellent.
Thank you. My name is Tessa Hoffman, and my mother, Patricia Hoffman, has owned our family cottage at 298 Goderich Lane since, I believe, 1986. As Mr. Norcliffe said before, he and my mother are the only two remaining landowners in that stretch who were part of that original purchase of the property. And so we have a vacant lot directly across from 298 Goderich Lane. So the cottage is on the water side. We have the vacant lot across the road that goes all the way up to Penetangor Road. So we are immediately south of the property that is being discussed today. And our concerns are similar to our neighbors. We're concerned about water pooling on our property and erosion issues. So just lending my voice as well to that same collective of concern about erosion and water. We have noticed seepage into our property. I lived in those woodlots when I was a kid. I was playing in there every day, and we never had any kind of swampy, mucky, like it was dry when I was younger. And it's only been in the last few years that we've noticed an increase in seepage and in sort of standing water, sort of right toward the base of the slope. So it is noticeable, and it is a change. So we wanted to just voice that concern that water and runoff is being managed appropriately should this site be developed.
Okay. Thank you very much for those comments, Ms. Hoffman. We appreciate you being here tonight. Jake, are there any other written submissions other than the one you presented this evening that council has not heard yet? Okay, thank you. Council again has opportunity for clarification if there's any questions that you would like to address again. Councillor Steinhoff-Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just a quick question for our planner. If it's possible to get information based on the fact that we had a build 4 years ago that had dramatically different requirements on the same slope, I would like to understand, especially when it's the same engineering firm, what was written in that, because it was obviously submitted to the Saugeen Conservation Authority, as well as this new one. I think it would be good to see. Thank you.
Jake, process question for you, please. There are some questions that council has every right to address, and I believe it is appropriate for both the applicant and the residents who are here expressing concerns to be given opportunity to maybe more fully understand some of the reasons and the logic and the process behind. If council were to propose a deferral until we received additional information to help us make a well-informed decision, are there processes or mechanisms within the Planning Act that we can do that without putting burden on either the applicant or yourself? Is there a process to do that? Like if we if we have, like, if this is the public meeting, that's okay. We've had the public meeting, but can we come back in 2 weeks or a period of time with the answers for further discussion? Or CAO, if you like, if like I just need some guidance here. Like I don't want no to be the answer, and I don't want yes to be the answer if we're not satisfied with what we've heard tonight. So how do we defer, pause this to allow planning and ourselves to receive that extra information without messing up the process? That's what I'm interested in doing at this point. Just hearing council and public conversations, and the need to support development in our municipality as best we can. So is there a process that we do, or what are some options here? Jeline, please.
Sure. So I would rely on the planner to advise with respect to timelines in process, application, et cetera. If I'm not confident that an interpretation between two different applications would be something that you would be able to obtain in reference to the question from the council member. As I'm not sure that would be available to council and have some type of interpretation to say why something is different in this situation versus another. So that's one consideration.
Because if I may, we have received reports from professional engineers and from Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority that says this proposed application is acceptable based on professional engineering reports, which we may be, but that's not our rule. Like we don't get to say no, you're wrong just because we may think you're wrong. We have to rely on those reports. Saugeen Valley has proposed a path forward regarding drainage, and though there may have been changes seen by the community that, well, this is different than before, I'm not sure that is a valid claim. When you receive an appeal at the Ontario Land Tribunal, it says you denied or did not based on opinion rather than on professional engineer reports. So if you could give me some guidance on how we might address that. Yeah. No, we'll wait for our planner on this one, please.
Well, deferral, I would need, if the clerk could help, I'm not totally sure what motion should be put forward, but deferral can be the outcome of your council tonight. The hope would be to bring it back. I know we did just schedule one for early December, so we could come back to another planning meeting as soon as possible. I think CAO's point about, I'm not sure if we can get into other permits, but I think we could certainly, what am I saying? It's a challenging application in that the lead authority is not here, the SVCA. I would happily take all of this back to the SVCA and get as much information as I can to provide to the council and to the neighbors, community members. So I think we can come back with more information.
So we do have a planning meeting scheduled for December 3rd, where there are specifically, I'll get to you. Yes, Mr. Walden, that might help guide our decision here a bit too.
Opinions, but they're not engineers. Saugeen Valley has approved this. The engineers have approved this. We've done this properly. So though I value their concerns, logic should prevail here. That's all I have to say.
Councillor Hinchberger, you had your hand up. Do you still have a question over there?
I did, a technical one and then one for the planner. I wondered if, Jake, if you could imagine that based on everything that's been talked about tonight, there could be a revision to the report that wouldn't necessarily change the outcome, but would provide I hate to use the word fulsome, but rationale behind everything. And this gets to my technical question. There's been talk about, I'm not no hydrogeologist or geotechnical engineer, but I heard interchangeable talk about runoff and seepage. And runoff to me is something that happens on the surface. Seepage is more of a groundwater issue. And I wonder if some of the concerns that have been raised are actually a result of groundwater issues that are beginning upstream to the east of the property in question and don't really have much to do with what we're talking about, but they're being brought into the conversation as if they do. I wondered if you had any comments on that. I know they both monitor the people downstream, but in some cases, what may be going on with a rebuild of Penetangor Row or development east of Penetangor Row is having downstream groundwater impacts, not necessarily what's proposed to happen on a property to be severed off of 308 Penetangor Row. Like, am I out in left field? Some merit to what I'm saying? Because, thank you.
I wouldn't feel comfortable commenting on hydrogeology. It's not my expertise. But you had a process question first of could this come back differently?
Well, I was kind of asking if your opinion, like based on everything you heard tonight, could you envision if you had a do-over, the report would be written a little differently without necessarily changing the conclusion?
Yeah, I think Councillor Steinhoff's gray question illustrates it. Information came out in the last week between when the report was circulated. I would welcome the opportunity to communicate more with SVCA and formulate a clearer, stronger report.
Just to follow up, because I was going to say, like, once all this discussion has been had in the room, I think a lot of it's been useful, but yet if it's not actually captured anywhere, it's completely lost. And somebody coming along afterwards, looking at the whole thing, might raise a whole lot of issues that we've talked about and addressed tonight. And where if you had a revision to the report that would, try to nail all of these issues, like I say, without necessarily changing the conclusion of the planning authorities.
This is going to sound heavy-handed, but we're not having a debate amongst the public and council anymore. So Mr. Grisdale and Mr. Norcliffe, you will not be given opportunity to respond to council. We're going to make a decision about our path forward this evening. So yes, I know it's very inconsistent. I agree with you. I do agree with you. Councillor Prenger, you had a question, please.
I have a few things to say, actually. A couple points. So first of all, generally SVCA, when it comes to engineering reports, will not take one that was done for an adjacent or a property nearby to use for a separate proposal. You have to do your own. And to comments made earlier, in terms of slope stability, it can change meter to meter, so it's very site specific, so it has to be done for that property. Secondly, in terms of hydrogeology, in general, SVCA does not regulate groundwater, but they do regulate slopes. So in slope stability, and because the hydrogeology is impacting the slope stability, in this case, they would have comments on it, but they would have to rely on the engineer to tell them what's going on there. While I am not opposed to development in this area, I do disagree with the fact that you can't challenge engineers. I did reviews of these properties for 5 years, just like this one, and I challenged engineer findings many times because they do miss things. So I do have concerns in particular about this property. However, I don't think they can't be overcome. My concern is the discrepancy between Mr. Norcliffe's findings and the engineer's findings in terms of the slope, the actual slope degree. Being on site and measuring it that way is the best way to, one of the best ways to do it. Unfortunately, SVCA staff's report doesn't say whether or not they did a site inspection for this particular proposal. So there's no indication of whether SVCA staff confirmed that slope degree or not. And there were several discrepancies between what was stated in terms of vegetation, slope degree, things like this. So I would challenge the findings of that, and I would want SVCA maybe to take staff to take another look and decide whether an update or further review is required before we make a decision. I personally, if there weren't these discrepancies, I could be in support of this zoning bylaw change, because really we're looking at the zone. If the SVCA and an engineer says the zone should be, the hazard is a specific place, then that's where the hazard is, even if it hasn't been changed on the next lot, because the zoning, the hazard mapping is based on a few things. And originally it was based on aerial mapping, then it was based on site visits, and some of them are based on engineering. So that area might have been updated over the years as new information comes in, right? Original mapping, the very original mapping would have been conservative. And as time goes on, you can push it back and back, or reduce the hazard zone, or increase it even in some cases, depending on what the engineers find or site visits find. So I don't know if I've answered all or stated all my concerns, but basically I understand that in general, according to the PPS and our policies, this fits. But I am concerned with the discrepancies that have been shown to us. So I would support a deferral until we have more information from SVCA.
Did you just make a motion we should defer that until December 3rd when Saugeen Valley would be here?
We did.
Okay. Further discussion on that motion? Is there discussion on a deferral? It will not be a public meeting per se. It will be this is the public meeting. We will receive more information from Saugeen Valley to make a decision. Councillor Williams.
Thank you. I just wanted to confirm, like, what's the additional information specifically that we would need to make an informed decision that we don't have now? Like, what's our best case scenario? What we'd want to see that we don't have right now? Clarity.
Thanks through you, Chair. For me, it would start with a response from SVCA staff of whether they're willing to reconsider or challenge the engineering report. And if not, then we're kind of stuck with what we have. If they are willing to, then they can request a revision or an update or further review, site-specific review by their own staff. I'm not sure what they need in order to revisit it. They would have to decide what goes into that, but they would have to say whether they're even willing to or not.
So we would be looking from Saugeen Valley for affirmation that yes, the report is right, or yes, they're willing to take a look at it, or like that. I believe that's the information I hear that we're wanting. Just confirmation from Saugeen Valley that the engineer's report, they stand by it and they're willing to support it. Okay. So we're going to vote on the deferral motion at this point. All in favor of deferring till December 3 to our planning meeting? Anyone opposed? And that's carried. Okay. So thank you for your participation. We appreciate you being here. Next application is from Jake again, and not from Julie, regarding an application from John and Nancy Cruikshank regarding an easement on 2557 Highway 21. Jake, please.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. So I apologize if I'm looking at the paper, Julie called in sick quite late in the day. I'm happy to jump in though. The decision before council is it's related to the easement, but it's the zoning bylaw amendment itself is what is before council tonight. So an application for an easement was submitted to provide access to wind turbines on this property on Highway 21. Saugeen Ojibwe Nation requested in order to address the high archaeological potential on the property that a holding be applied to the portions of the property where that potential exists. So the zoning bylaw would have to be amended to enable that holding, after which point the consent applications to create that easement would be considered by the county at a later date. I will leave it there.
Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak to this application? Questions from council regarding this application? So we are going to approve a zoning bylaw. It's not an application for an amendment or something. It's the bylaw that's coming back, right?
A holding provision.
A holding provision onto the bylaw.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If there's no further questions, we need a mover and seconder that council approve the zoning bylaw amendment application by John and Nancy Cruikshank, and the necessary bylaw be passed by council. Councillor Hinchberger and Deputy Mayor Clark, any further discussion? All in favor? That one was quicker. Next application is from Bruce K. Holdings. And once again, we have Jake here, our county planner, to explain the report and recommendation, please.
Okay, thank you once again, Mayor and Council. So this item before you tonight is not a recommendation for approval, just that this report be received for information. We would invite your feedback, public feedback, to bring a recommendation forward at a later date on this proposal. So a summary of what's proposed is to sever a portion of the Bruce K. Holdings lands at the north end of Kincardine. The area proposed for severance would need to be rezoned from planned development to a residential zone. So that rezoning is before council tonight. The proposal is for one mixed-use one mixed-use building with office and commercial on the main floor and 70 units above. Another is a standalone residential building beside it with 75 units intended for seniors. And these are all meant to be purpose-built rental buildings. The county official plan and the provincial planning statement direct growth to serviced areas to provide a variety and range of housing types. The Bruce County official plan directs provisions for land and services to satisfy requirements for economic development activities within the municipality, in particular those that would require municipal services. The property is designated business park in the municipality's official plan. The intention of the business park designation is to provide lands for highway commercial, light industrial, and some mixed use developments. So following those mixed use policies, which are in the municipality's official plan, those policies provide for the developments with a range of commercial, office, and residential. Those policies prescribe building typologies of medium to high density built form with ground floor commercial. The policies state that there can be standalone residential if they are part of an overall plan of subdivision, demonstrating that there will be further non-residential components. The applicants have provided a concept plan to show how the balance of those lands up to Highway 21 could be developed in the future with other uses. And they have indicated their intention to do that through a plan of subdivision in the future. The business park policies prescribe a 30-meter landscaped buffer between any of the business park uses and any residential zones. So that concept plan does demonstrate that the landscape buffer would fall on the balance of the lands outside of this residential proposal. Retail uses on the main floor would be somewhat constrained. The mixed use policies encourage retail on ground floor, whereas the business park policies, which is what this falls within, have been created to restrict some sizes and uses. The intention of those business park policies is to preserve the downtown as a core for small scale businesses. So there's a minimum floor size in the business park area and a constrained range of commercial uses that would be available to go in that ground floor. On to land division. Both county and local official plans contain provisions to inform land division, whether it proceed by severance or plan of subdivision. The applicant has submitted an application for severance and has indicated their intent to develop the balance by plan of subdivision. Again, that concept plan that they provided is to illustrate how the balance could be developed in the future. Servicing was demonstrated in a functional servicing report to be, and the municipality has reviewed and confirmed that the servicing installed under Gary Street is generally sufficient for development in that entire parcel. No extension would be needed for the proposal that's immediately before you. Future uses on the land would need to extend those services under the future Gary Street. Stormwater management has been demonstrated by tying into the existing pond to the west of the Bruce Power facility. The municipality's engineer indicated that the subject lands were not planned to tie into that pond, and so requested a conceptual stormwater management plan for the balance to show how they can be serviced in the future. So that was provided and accepted by the municipality's engineers. Finally, to note traffic. A traffic impact study was provided by the applicants. It demonstrated that the existing network has capacity for this immediately proposed residential and mixed-use development, without off-site improvements being required. One public comment was received from a resident along Gary Street with one of the driveways that fronts onto Gary Street, articulating concerns with an increase in traffic along there. And finally, to note, the applicant, who is the owner of that large parcel of lands, is in discussions with MTO to discuss a new entrance onto Highway 21. However, those talks are preliminary, so the current proposal is not at all based on that assumption. It's based on Gary Street in its current configuration. MTO hasn't provided comments on the proposal yet. I will leave my information report there, but I'm happy to answer questions when the time comes.
We have online with us the applicant's agent, Tracy Pion-Abbs, and the owner of the land himself, Harnick, is online as well. Tracy, are you there? Here we go. Good evening. Welcome to council meeting.
Good evening. My name is Tracy Pion-Abbs. I'm a land use planner and the agent for the applicant. And through you, Mr. Mayor, happy to answer any questions that you or council might have with respect to this proposed development at the appropriate time.
Okay, we've just received the report from our planner. Are there any members of the gallery who would like to speak in support of or in opposition to the report that we've heard this evening? Okay. Okay. Any comments, questions from council to either Jake or Tracy this evening? Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through your chair. The ask was whether there was any feedback from council. I've tried to be as succinct as I could be. My appetite for this proposal would be proportional to the likelihood of finishing a project in a reasonable time frame, whether the constructed residential units actually turn out to be affordable. The specific commercial uses being proposed on the ground floor of these buildings, actually one of the two, and the provision of an additional entrance into the area to alleviate traffic.
Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, through you. I think based on reviewing this, it's a great opportunity for that area. I was a little bit surprised that, like, there was a reference at some point where existing road network has capacity, and I was like, well, does it? Because I'm not convinced it does. But I just want to question a point of clarification, because I'm looking at the map and I'm trying to match it to the plan of subdivision. Is the property we're talking about like basically adjacent to the Bruce County housing to the east? Is that okay? Thanks.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you, through you. And I apologize if this is it seems like an obvious question, but the application is for a potential or the potential change from plan development to R4 special. I'm wondering why and the decision to do R4 special as opposed to a mixed use was done. Does it give them more flexibility in terms of what the commercial operators could be, or is there other benefits that I'm just curious if you could speak a little bit about why that specific zoning was chosen over, for example, our mixed use zoning provision.
The mixed use zone was discussed, and it is it's a C, I believe it's C6. I would have to check since the zoning bylaw was updated. But it's foremost a commercial zone with residential permitted as a sort of an accessory use. The way the application came forward of 125 residential units and potentially 10 or fewer commercial units, the thought there is that a residential zone reflects more accurately the predominant use that's being proposed. It's also in keeping with several or a few recent applications. I'm sorry, I don't have them top of mind, but where the R4 zone has been modified to provide some commercial ground floor rather than a commercial zone permitting residential.
Councillor Pranger, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. The planning report states that the EP zones will remain primarily unchanged, and yet it doesn't say how they will change or how they're asking to be changed, regardless of how minor it's not indicated. And the SVCA report doesn't mention any change to the EP zones. Can you clarify, please?
I apologize. That's just bad wording. There's no change. It should say the EP zones are not changing. Yeah.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor. I've been through this property a few times and it's been a disaster for us, to be honest with you. I like your idea. I really do. It's not a question I don't like the development, but we're changing what we originally designed, which was really a commercial type of operation, to a residential. And when you change a residential to 75, your services have to be upgraded. And, you know, one thing I don't see here, and it's not up to you, it's up to our engineers and up to our planning department. I really need to start seeing the cost. We have over $3 million in there that basically just sits. And we haven't got any investment on that at all. So I'm like my fellow counselor here. I want to see when this thing's going to happen, the time element. But I don't want to get out there with our engineers and start building the infrastructure for this because it's not there. They might say it's there, but it's not really there. It's stopped. So, you know, I think we also need to see from our engineer and our planning department what sort of type of Class C costs or Class D costs we're looking at, because I think you're looking at another $2 or $3 million. So our total investment on this property would be about $6 million. So it comes down to economics for me, but overall, I like what you're proposing. Thank you.
Once again, just to confirm what is the intent of this meeting tonight is just to gather input from community and council about what some of the challenges or issues might be going forward, for an opportunity for county and the proponent to hear our concerns or stuff like that. So yeah, okay. Adam, please, could you comment on that?
Yeah, thanks. And through your Mayor Craig, Councillor Stewart, just to provide a bit of a response to your comments there. The site right now, the area specific development charge, we're looking at a value of less than what you had stated. I don't have that in front of me, but it certainly has come down. And the reason for that is that there are works that when we first set out and did the work that is done, there were additional works in terms of road extension and another storm pond that we had projected we would do when the municipality had the option agreement in place. Since this owner has taken that over, the costs are less. I believe they're closer to the $1 million range. But that I can confirm for council offline of this meeting. The bigger piece of it, though, is that if there are any other infrastructure requirements, that'll be at the expense of the developer solely. So what this council sees in terms of the ASDC and that has been committed to in the past is all that you would be looking at in terms of what you have expensed for this. And so by seeing development move forward, it would give you a potential method to start collecting on those ASDCs and seeing the recovery of what sits from the original investment that was made back in around 2018.
Councillor Stewart, just to
follow up, I'd like to see a performa on that whole thing, because I know there's 3 million in this. So I'm very sensitive about costs and everything back to the taxpayers, because this costs a lot. So I understand that developers could do the $1 million and everything, but I want to see hard figures if you don't mind. Thank you.
That would really be dependent upon the size and scope and everything of the construction that takes place. Like there would be some variations depending on the permitting values and things like that. Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I'm quite supportive of this application. I'd like to see some more stuff happening on those lands. The one thing I do note, this was a business park. This was looked at. So I'm not actually opposed to that, having a residential element of it. I think that's great because it does actually then support the commercial properties that are there. And so I'm very supportive of the builds and the recommendations, especially throughout the future potential build out of having commercial on ground floor and second floor with additional residential. And I guess my only thought would be, I would want to give potentially the proponent the biggest leeway that they could to have the commercial tenants that would be feasible for that land. So again, that's the only reason we asked about the R4 zoning versus mixed use, and whether it would be beneficial to even have the back half with a residential zoning in the front half with something like a mixed use, just to support them to whichever zoning would help to find sustainable commercial tenants in that space, so that whole area has some additional commercial space because that's what it was initially intended as.
Okay. Those are the comments. Those are the questions so far to this point. This is unless Tracy, do you have anything to add to the conversation at this point, or?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'd like to just follow up on the councillor's question about the commercial component. This is just phase one of the beginning of development, which is keeping with the original master plan. This area was identified for residential, and we're actually adding more commercial to this existing area. Now, the balance of the land, when we come forward with the draft plan of subdivision, will be focused mainly on commercial. And so the intent of the applicant would be is the mixed use would be things that would support the residents, such as, you know, small offices, retail, restaurants, and possibly just some service type retail. So that was sort of the focus of making it kind of a complete community, and then allowing the other future lands to support more commercial for the entire community. So thought maybe that might help with sharing the vision of what the applicant is looking at.
Okay, thanks very much. So it says here, as part of the report, at a later date, staff will present a recommendation which also addresses the comments which have arisen this evening. So Jake, thank you for being here to make these planning applications. Appreciate it. All right, we move on to staff reports, and the first staff report is regarding short-term rental accommodation bylaw. And we need a mover and seconder that council adopt the short-term rental accommodation bylaw, moved by councillors Blackwell and Steinhoff Gray. It's a really quick motion, but there might be some questions that would arise from this. So if council has any questions for our manager. Is there, you have anything to add to the motion, manager? Would you like to make comments or?
Through you, Mayor Craig, if I may make comments, just because it has been something that we've had a lot of questions from the public as well. And so if I may make some comments, I know it's been long. You've had a long out so far. So the purpose of the report really is to provide council with the draft short-term rental accommodation bylaw and some of the next steps that staff have been working on. And just to reiterate, the direction of council was to make the bylaw and the process on a cost recovery basis. We do have about 157 short-term rentals in the community, and that was according to Granicus, which was attached to your council report. Again, they did a scan of our community to see how many that we have, and that was the number that we've been basing our estimates on. And really, I want to make the point that short-term rental accommodations do offer homeowners an additional income stream, as well as a way to provide accommodation to visitors. And so it is a key kind of economic driver in our community, but I do want to make that it is some form of a business almost. A staff team was formed over the past year to create the framework for the short-term rental administration, the enforcement, and the bylaw. And I just want to mention that the staff team was Roxana, it was our manager of legislative services, our clerk, manager of financial services, our chief building official, our fire chief, and myself. And so through the staff team, we did conduct research with other municipalities across Ontario and in some cases across Canada regarding administration, best practices, and we gathered examples of other bylaws across the way. And so I just want to provide you with a little bit of a background around how we came up with the attached bylaw. And point out that the definition of short-term rental accommodations is from our comprehensive zoning bylaw. So this is from our comprehensive zoning bylaw, and it is the dwelling unit that's used to provide sleeping accommodations for any period of less than 28 days and is operated by the owner of the property. So I just want to mention that that's the definition we used. And then we developed the bylaw in a way based on some of the benefits that we've talked about and council has talked about over the past year, that we want to make sure that whatever we do, that the short-term rentals are operated in a safe and legal manner, that they comply with the building code, that they are located with the neighborhoods and they don't impact neighboring property owners. And that we wanted a way to track and monitor and understand the housing supply dedicated to short-term rentals. And so that's part of what we've developed through our implementation process. And so again, the bylaw before you, just some key points, because it is a long bylaw. We wanted to use existing regulatory bylaws. We don't want to have one set of rules for residents and one set of rules for short-term visitors. And so we are using, in the bylaw, you'll see we reference our existing bylaws. We've also, will have a process around what we call reverse onus. So property owners will be, that are renting, will be ensuring that their properties meet the safety standards. And so we're going to have a checklist, and then they would then go through the checklist to make sure and confirm and declare, I should say, that all of those specifications have been met. We won't be doing all the fire inspections at once. We've talked with our fire chief. He would love that if we could do it, but that's not the intention. It just capacity wouldn't work. So we are asking, owners to have certain things in place, like smoke alarms, extinguishers, etc. But we will be doing random checks, and so that's what we'll be putting into place. Will be random fire inspections each year, so that that way we are kind of continuing with that safety part. We also didn't put any caps. I know that was some of the questions we had on the total number of short-term rentals in the municipality, or, within specific areas of the neighborhood. So we're saying the bylaw has very much, they can be wherever. And so that's part of the permitting process. And then we also didn't put any limitations around who could be a short-term rental accommodator. So that's also part of the bylaw. And that every year there would be an annual renewal, and so that they could they'll verify the information. So just the highlights then of what's in the proposed bylaw, that we are saying it's mandatory for all short-term rental licenses, regardless of how many weeks you rent, would be required a license, 1 license per dwelling. There would be maximum occupancy limits of 2 people per bedroom plus additional 2 guests in the bylaw, or in the short-term rental accommodation. Required proof of insurance, which would meet the standards of our insurer. Fire safety compliance. So again, that reverse onus, checking off that they have fire extinguishers installed, alarms, etc. We do have a clause in there about having a responsible person who must respond within 30 minutes, and then like that's by phone, and then also a 60 minutes if the issue is not resolved, to be on site. And enforcement would be through our bylaw officers, and then the clerk would be the one who administer the bylaw and delegate duties to a third party, which is what staff are recommending we've identified a third party service as the most efficient way to administer it, both from the point of view of the accommodator as well as from a staff point of view. And so Granicus is the company that we are suggesting as part of the next steps, with a cost of about $16,000 annually. There'll also be some startup costs to get us going in the initial part. But the advantage of using Granicus is when we move to the bylaw for the municipal accommodation tax, they can collect both. They can do both pieces of the work. And they do all kinds of the work of the monitoring of the platforms. They do the 24-hour phone hotline for residents to call into. And then they also have the dashboard for tracking. So that'll help us with the tracking and reporting back to council. And so I just want to note, though, that process will take us some time to get it started up. They have estimated it could be up to 4 months. So once council has decided which way bylaw to go ahead with, or not, we wouldn't start the work until we've got approval from council. So that will take us some time. But I would also mention that even with the third party services, we're also going to need municipal staff, time for administration and financial oversight. Our chief building official might be called in depending upon what happens on the inspections. Our fire services, obviously, with the inspections, will also need to be involved. Communications and promotions, as well as bylaw enforcement. So all of that is still going to take staff time, even though we hire out with a third party. And we've estimated those costs to be about $58,000 annually. I do want to also mention that we have put in a proposed cost for permitting, and this is based on basically a cost recovery basis and on a guesstimate as of this year. We do plan on to track that over the year, the expenses, and potentially revise and come back to council with a revised fee. But right now, we're proposing for year one, the licensing fee would be $800. For year two, it would be $500. And for year three, it would be $500. And the total estimate over 3 years that's $1,800. So again, just sort of the last little point here is that we have also in the bylaw, you'll see fines proposed. So if there's non-compliance, there is a list of fines there that we've also included for your review. And then just to tie it off, I really want to say that there is a connection between the municipal accommodation tax and the short-term rental accommodation licensing, as most of the municipalities implement both or eventually implement both to regulate, the short-term rentals, but also to kind of level the playing field between hotels, motels, and also making sure that you're safe. Your accommodations are safe no matter if you stay in a short-term rental or you stay in a hotel or a motel. And if you're going to collect the MAT tax, then that definitely does help laying that playing field with short-term rentals as well as municipal accommodation tax. So that's I just wanted to make those couple of comments and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Manager. Any questions from council members? Councillor Steinhoff, Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I did have one question, and it was related to the demerit points, just because some other municipalities have done some different things with the demerit points. Like I would definitely say Collingwood is more creative. I'd say that ours would be based strictly on the safety protocols that we're trying to get into place. Is that because we assume we're using normal bylaw to deal with the noise complaints and the other things that arise? I just thought I'd clarify why we deviate in some ways there.
Yeah, she's gonna answer. She does that. Through you, Chair. I would say that we are doing something very similar. What we are doing is saying if that person gets a noise control bylaw violation against that property and it is not appealed or anything like that, then yes, that is a demerit point, which would be similar to what they're doing. So if they are getting a ticket for fireworks or they're getting a ticket for another municipal bylaw, that is going against their demerit points. So I'm not sure if that's answering your question, but.
Thank you so much.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I don't have so much of a question. Well, I will get to it. But the first thing I want to do is say that I recognize that some folks have maybe been not in favor of this, others have been. I think there's a couple of avenues that we could have gone down, right? So one was we could have banned them completely like Goderich has or Collingwood had prior. We could have done nothing, which we're doing right now, which I don't think is working either. And so I think a licensing bylaw is unfortunately necessary. We did call on the province to try and do a provincial one, and they have yet to respond to that. So I'm quite supportive of a licensing bylaw. Councillor Stewart did share an article from Collingwood that shows that it was working there. The licensing bylaw is doing exactly what it was intended to do: reduced unregulated activity, minimize neighborhood disruption, reduced impact on long-term housing supply, and improve safety and compliance. So I'm supportive of us moving forward with this. I think one of the challenges I have is as a tourist community and as a seasonal community in many parts, I would be hesitant to have a one-size-fits-all application fee or class, if you will. Some other places that have used only the one class have also limited short-term rentals only to principal residences. And I don't think we want to do that because a lot of people have a secondary unit or rental here that they use part of the year and then they also rent out part of the year. And so if we were to limit it to principal residences, which is what's commonly done across the province, I think we'd actually be harming our tourism sector. So I do want to support folks who are using and being able to do it responsibly, while at the same time trying to get a handle on a number of long-term rental units that are being converted exclusively into short-term rentals. So I guess I'd like to hear other people's thoughts, but it is something that I'd like to see having some potential tiers or different classes. And I don't know whether that's something that Granicus could help us with in terms of monitoring or not, but it is something that I think would strengthen the bylaw compliance as well as reflect the local realities here.
Response, or just thank you for the comments and
Through you, Bear. I did speak with Granicus actually after your question came through, Councillor Blackwell. They can track and they have, you know, if the owner puts in as a different tier into the system, but they don't know that from this, like the scope of, you know, like scraping the system externally, because they don't go into the home and know who's living there, who's not living there. And if we do a tiered system, they can track it. It will just cost more than what is in this price quote. So we would need to go back and get some additional prices. We would also need to adapt, obviously, the bylaw, do some more work around that. And in our research, there's not many municipalities who do a tiered system. And so that's why we chose this one, and it is simpler. And we feel it also helps with all the pieces of what we were trying to do, so.
Councillor Prenger, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. To what you just said, Manager Fieldsy, I get why you set it up this way, and you just explained why. It's kind of what we asked for in theory. Given some of the comments that have come in recently from some of our constituents, which via email, I think everybody has seen them. I'm in alignment with Councillor Blackwell on thinking that maybe a multiple tiered licensing system in terms of fees and how they apply could be relevant in our area if we're going to do this. To the owners of West Shore Ash and Tanya Adams' comments about over regulating, I understand we want to address safety and ensure everybody's doing these things, but for people who are operating this type of thing in a commercial zone already as part of their business already and who already have inspections going on and things like this, I wouldn't want to overburden them. And I didn't consider that until now. Like I hadn't wrapped my head around that possibility of it happening like that. I didn't realize it was. So knowing that we could unintentionally be, like I said, overburdening some of our existing businesses, is there a way we can address that issue?
Through you, Bear Craig, you could have no cost, like for the permits. I think that's been the complaints, is the cost. That would be one solution. There could be other solutions as well, but that could be one.
And just to that point, then I believe we would have to update the bylaw to indicate that change.
Yes, the bylaw will need to be updated regardless, cost-wise, as well as a tiered system and implementation. All of those things would need to be factored in, depending upon council's wishes.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Laurie, you and your team have done a great job. I can't still support this. I really see some downfalls with this thing, especially being in Ward 2. We have a lot of seasonal people. A lot of seasonal people rent their cottages for 2 weeks to pay for the expensive taxes we fit on them. So they would all have to pay the $800 and go through this process. I think that's a little bit unfair. We're a little different community. We're not a Collingwood or anything. We basically have 3 to 4 months of the year that tourists come. And, you know, we're going to really punish them a little bit, especially hotels and everything. I wouldn't see a lot of them maybe go up to Saugeen Shores. They don't have an accommodation tax. And you know, so anyways, excuse me? But, you know, what I'm saying is, you know, I think that it was a great idea. I don't think we're going to get a lot of support from the public. We seem to have a lot of support around the council, but I don't think there's a lot of support. I think what you're going to see is the cost will definitely increase, and we will not be able to go neutral with this at all. There'll be a $200,000 or $300,000 cost. When you start bringing in enforcement and compliance costs and all that, there's an incredible amount of complexity. And, I'm really afraid that your department's going to be very busy with everyone else and everything else. And I'm not sure if there's really high value for this. So unfortunately, I won't be supporting this. Thank you.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I agree with both Councillor Stewart and Councillor Blackwell. I'm in favor of regulating short-term accommodations, but I agree with Councillor Stewart. I live in an area where I'm aware of a number of people who own a cottage as a secondary residence, and through a few weeks in the year, they rent it out in order to help pay the bills, property taxes being one of them. I think that there will be numerous properties that will fall under the definition of the bylaw that aren't being operated as a business, that have not been picked up by the Granicus survey. It's just a gut feel based on a sample set. As a result, I'm not really sure how I feel about the current cost recovery model for fees, because I feel it puts a disproportionate onus on funding the program on smaller operators or ones who are actually better at managing their guests, because the total cost that was projected, I'm going to estimate 2/3 of the cost, no more than that, 3/4 was related to additional administration and protected bylaw enforcement outside of the cost of paying Granicus to sort of administer the system. I think there's a number of ways around this. I favor essentially having, I don't know about multi-tiers, but I think at least 2 are better than the current one that we have. As far as support, I have received emails and communications and discussions with people who are in favor of this that range on the spectrum from people that find it very difficult to find a place to live because they feel they've been shut out of the market here, and even from members of the real estate community who express their frustration when they're basically asked by somebody to come into the area to help them find a rental space, and they basically say they can't because so much of what would otherwise be long-term rental is being tied up in the short-term rental market. So just to summarize, I support the thing in principle. I believe there's a solution to my colleagues' concerns about how it affects cottagers that really aren't operating it as a business, and that's the direction I'd kind of like to see it go. The bylaw revised and amended. Thanks.
Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, through you. I just have a question and then a comment. So I do appreciate you kind of taking us through this process. I know it's been a bit of a journey, and I certainly appreciate the steps that we've taken over the last several months to kind of get there in phases. So my question is specific to next steps. I mean, the net tax and the short-term accommodation was all part of like a package, and this is the first step of execution. So should this be passed tonight, what are the next steps in the approval process? And then I have a comment.
Through you, Mayor Craig. So if the bylaw was approved this evening, we would be working with Granicus to get the system up into place, and then having the public launch in January to let the public know that, and have some open houses to explain it so that accommodators can come in, continue that engagement process. And we have a deadline in the bylaw to have applications in by May of 2026 to get the short-term accommodators in, and then we would also be bringing back the bylaw for the MAT tax around that same period to get the MAT tax rolling. So the short-term, we were hoping the short-term rental, like that would be done first, and then we'd move into the municipal accommodation tax process and the bylaw.
So I've definitely been through, changed my thought quite a bit since the beginning of this process, and I'll speak specifically to the short-term accommodation bylaw. I agree with Councillor Stewart. I think it's a really complicated, expensive regulatory regime that we're putting in place, and I'm not convinced that we will get the favorable outcomes that we're looking for, or perhaps we will, but at the cost of hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars. I don't think the MAT tax is going to recover the cost of putting this in place. Just based on the volume and what we've seen in other communities, I don't think it will happen. I have concerns though from residents regarding short-term accommodations, and But again, I'm not convinced that this is going to achieve it. And I suppose to Councillor Blackwell's point, you know, there's a variety of different tools that we have in place that we can use to kind of advance providing better resources in place to make sure that short-term accommodators are, or short-term tenants, I guess, are acting in, you know, safe and kind of manners that are neighborly. And so I'd rather see like an education campaign put in place. You know, maybe we do some public education sessions and we inform short-term homeowners about, you know, giving them tips and guidance for short-term rentals, how to provide safe short-term accommodations for those coming into the community. And I do think that we have some enforcement tools in our existing bylaws to allow us to address a lot of the concerns, or even through like our policing laws. And so I would like to see us look at what we currently have and just make it more of an education awareness session first, and then see if we make progress that way.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you. One of the things that throughout this process has seemed to be conflated is if the short-term rental bylaw and the mat tax. From my understanding, we could approve the short-term rental bylaw tonight. The mat tax could be something that we change our mind on. It's not required to be in tandem. Like approving a short-term accommodation tax has nothing realistically to do with the mat tax, because the short-term rental bylaw through our direction previously was cost recovery of in and of itself. So the mat tax would not necessarily be funding, shouldn't be, the short-term rental bylaw. And we would still have the option to decide if the mat tax is something we want to enter into in the future. Like, I think there's some fear that they're one and the same. And if we say yes tonight, or if I'd like to make an amendment around the with a tier system, like if we say yes to that, inherently saying yes to a mat tax. I'd like to get clarity and ensure that I'm on the right track with that.
Through you, Mayor Craig, that is true, although council did approve the motion back at the September 10th meeting to move forward with the drafting the mat tax bylaw, which we were planning to do in the spring, but council's prerogative to change their mind at any point, so.
So if I might summarize what I've heard up here is the broad acceptance with some exceptions of the proposed short-term rental accommodation tax, but I think it would proceed if it was at least a two-tier, like not multi-tier, but if there was an approach whereby there is a different licensing approach for different intensities of use of a facility or different zoning or something like that. So I'm wondering if council has an appetite to direct our manager to come back with an amended format for the licensing process. It is not my desire to make it so complex on our staff that we can't either develop it or administer it. That's too complex. But I did hear Councillor Hinchberger talking of like two tiers, you know, you got to bring back the recommendation. This is what it's based on. So if council has any comments regarding that direction to staff, I would appreciate if there's any amendments to the direction I've just suggested. Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I appreciate your optimism, but I feel there's at least a couple members of council that aren't even agreed to a tier system. But in order to get the ball rolling here, I'd like to propose a motion that council directs staff to amend the draft bylaw as presented to provide for the inclusion of at least a two-tier system of managing short-term rentals.
It's not included in the motion, but just as actually I need a seconder for Councillor Hinchberger's recommendation, Councillor Blackwell. It was not included in your motion, but is that broadly based on cost neutrality? like we don't want it to suck the life out of our budget, but we're not trying to make money on it either. We're just trying to support the work that we're doing. Is that the intent of the motion, or is it, or do we need to see the budgeting of that before we make that determination?
Through you, Chair, I'd like to see the budgeting of that because I didn't bring this up when I made my earlier comments. One thing I find a little unique about this, in some aspects of this is bylaw enforcement, and we're applying a cost recovery principle. Yet on the remainder of our entire bylaw program, we don't apply that. And in fact, it's very clearly stated that bylaw enforcement never recovers costs. So I would like to see the budget considerations of that.
The clerk just did remind me that when we go through the licensing process, whether it's for dog kennels or food vendors, there is a cost recovery, cost neutrality model. So, you know, I agree that there should be a, you know, this is the anticipated costs and recovery, just to see what it looks like as that and how it would affect our decision too. So I'm broadly in agreement with what you're saying anyway. So it was Beth. So we have a so we had a motion on the floor regarding the implementation of the bylaw. What is this, an amendment, or I'm talking about process here?
Through you. What I would say that what you're asking us to do is you're referring the bylaw back to staff and directing staff to bring back an amended bylaw with the inclusion of a two-tiered system. So that's basically what the motion is. It's a motion to refer.
Sounds wonderful to me.
Yeah.
So we have a motion to refer. All in favor of that motion?
Can we just have the little, it's on the floor, right, for discussion, just briefly.
Yeah.
I just want to add something new here. Through you, Chair. There's a lot of talk about like costs here, and I don't want to necessarily say that it's a done deal, that say if we implement something here, we're going to have a positive effect, for instance, like say that's been reported in Collingwood. But I'd like to point out to the council here is separate to this, we have an outstanding housing action plan file in which we're prepared in some ways to spend directly or indirectly the equivalent of tens of thousands of dollars in order to do that. So if you could implement a short-term tax, in a sense, it's part of your housing action plan. So I don't consider it necessarily to be sort of just lost expense. Thank you.
All in favor of the motion? Is there anyone opposed? And that was carried. So we look forward to the representation of that report. So we have one more report from Manager Fiozzi, and then we'll do the bio break. Okay. We need a mover and seconder that council approve a 2025 budget amendment for the downtown speaker system in the amount of $29,205 to address the operational issues of the downtown speaker system, and that this project be funded from the contingency reserve. Moved by councillors Blackwell and Williams. Is there any discussion? Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And through you, Chair. I'm getting a little worried about, you know, when you got pretty well a 1/3 increase. How did we get this wrong? I mean, we have to be careful, and we've run into this, and I'm not blaming you, but we've run into this a few times, that all of a sudden the boardwalk, all of a sudden we thought it was this much, and all of a sudden it's that much. Is it that we're not doing, or we're not picking on the right people to get a cost at the beginning, so we don't have to come back? Because I'm getting a little worried about our contingency fund. We had a surplus of 2.2 last year, and it's going straight down. So maybe try to help me out between the 90,000 and the new 30,000 and what happened. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Craig. We had the system put into place. Wi-Fi is not the best system to put into place. Infrastructure would have been better under the ground, but we did some research, and we thought with the existing Wi-Fi and the existing system, it would work, but it doesn't. It's inconsistent. And so additional boosters, we have tried them out on 3 of the speakers, and it is working 100% better. We've got 100% reliability for the 3. And where we are putting in a separate Wi-Fi connection just for the speakers, so we're hoping it will do the whole street. Can I say 100% for sure it's going to work? I'm hoping. We did try it, but it is something that we just didn't foresee. If we had foresee it, we probably would have put it under the ground, which wasn't actually a possibility at the time of the downtown dig. So.
Okay, well, thank you for falling on the sword. I mean, these things happen, but thank you for the explanation.
All in favor of the motion? It's carried. Bio break, 5 minutes. Okay, we continue on with our meeting. Thank you for your patience. Extension of contract for waste management, refuse collection, environmental services. We need a mover and seconder. The council approve the contract extension with Bruce Area Solid Waste Recycling commencing January 1st, 2026 with an expiration of December 31st, 2026. Moved by councillors Blackwell and Hinchberger. Discussion. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. I just trying to understand this. Our CEO sent us a letter just recently. I think in the last couple hours, you sent it about the contract negotiation and everything. I don't really understood how that impacts this, but anyways, with this one alone, I'm worried about this one. You know, first of all, you're raising your cost up 13,000. It doesn't sound like a lot. Percentage wise, it's 5%. You know, we got to stop doing this. I mean, you know, inflation's 2.4. So are we going to start raising everything double inflation? I mean, basically that's a higher cost than inflation. But the one thing that really upsets me about this, and I think you'll find that my fellow councillor in Ward 3, is that we're still picking up cardboard from downtown residents and businesses only. So the ones in Tiverton and the ones outside of Kincardine don't get that privilege. And one of the things is the cardboard is not really our responsibility anymore. What I understand, that is somebody else's responsibility, and they should be paying for that. Like, where's this cardboard going? I mean, we're going to be losing all the blue bins, I hear, throughout the thing. So I don't quite understand why we still are picking up downtown cardboard, and why do the businesses in Tiverton and surrounding area don't get the same privilege? And should we be doing it in the first place?
I see our Director of Infrastructure online there. Adam, can you respond to Councillor Stewart's query, please?
Mark, if you're there, I'm going to maybe defer to you if you don't mind, just to confirm. But my understanding is that that collection is not part of this, and it may just be poor wording in the report we prepared. But Mark, over to you.
Yeah, good evening through you, Mayor Craig. So to your question, Councillor Stewart, the cardboard contract will expire at the end of 2026 and we won't be responsible for it, but it was initially included in the agreement we signed 3 years ago that we did garbage collection and the cardboard collection. So that component of it will come out of the contract, and it was, I believe, around $35,000 a year, I think, somewhere in that range. So that is out of the contract now, and this is just straight garbage collection.
Thank you. It wasn't really clear in the report, I think, too. So it's good. So we won't be doing any cardboard collection at all, and we have a savings of 30,000. I'm not sure, but you know, what is the overall savings for the recycling services that we no longer will be responsible for? I mean, you know, I know the garbage is garbage, and we have a 5% increase, but how about the you know, recycling services? Because are we saving X amount of dollars because we no longer have that responsibility after the government's regulations?
So that is, it is an associated question, but it is outside the question that's here. This is just about extending. It says Bruce Area Solid Waste Recycling. That's the name of the company, but they're not responsible for this part of the contract. This is only for garbage collection. But Mark, in the proposed 2026 budget, there is a line item indicating the projected cost savings for recyclable collection. Could you do you recall what that number is?
Through you, Mayor Craig. I believe that contract between the
You're on mute, Mark.
I could hear him, Mayor Craig. So can you hear me still?
Yes, we can still hear you. So broadly speaking, the number in the proposed budget for saving for recycling is about $325,000.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So it is And in the report, it indicated that, yes, we're in a transition. Yes, there's some changes that the municipality is going to look at regarding green bin. Yes, there's a whole bunch of changes coming. That's why it is only proposed to be a one-year contract, because we know that there will be changes coming in 2027. Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I did want to actually pull that element out of the report, because that was something that I was really interested in, is that we're looking for a one-year extension, but we're actually using that time to work with Basra about kind of how they're changing, and then to also look at whether there's a green bin program or something like that, whether that's in consultation and support with the county or by ourselves. And I think that is quite exciting to be able to pull out and to highlight. So it is something that I'll support right now, especially because of those additional elements.
Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you. Through you. Have past agreements been multi-year, and what's the percentage rate increase that we've seen in the past year over year?
Manager, can you speak to that, or Adam?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Craig. We have had, for the most part, often multiple year extensions with the contract. I believe even the last one may have expired and we continued on. I don't quote me, but I believe the last contract was almost 3% a year. I think it was 8.5 over the 3-year term.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. Sorry to be in through you, Chair. Just to be technical, yes, this is basically extending the agreement, but this is actually approving a pre-budget 26 approval, right? This is our 26, but it doesn't really read. So we're actually going ahead and going to say this is part of the budget, and we're approving it tonight.
Technically speaking, yes, you're correct in that. Having said that, if we don't approve it, then we theoretically don't have any garbage service starting the 1st of January either. So that's the challenging timing thing that we're dealing with.
And I agree, and through you, I agree with that. But it didn't read properly that this is a pre-approval for a budget item for 26.
Okay, Councillor Williams, you had a question.
Oh, I was just going to ask what the rationale for the additional 2% increase was.
5%.
2 more than past years.
Was there any justification provided for that higher than normal raise in the contract cost, Manager?
Through you, Mayor Craig, we reached out to Basra, and that letter is attached to the report tonight. You'll see that there wasn't a lot of additional justification as to the increase, but offline there was some discussion around fleet and ongoing concerns with repairs and replacement there.
So we have the motion before us. All in favor of the motion? Anyone opposed? That's carried. Encroachment agreement, 129 Lake Street and 64 Victoria. We need a mover and seconder that the council of the municipality of Kincardine direct staff to proceed with preparing and executing an encroachment agreement between the municipality and the property owner of 129 Lake Street and 64 Victoria Street in Verhuron. Moved by Councillors Stewart and Hinchberger. Discussion. All in favor? That's carried. Policy review, development services. We need a mover and seconder that council repeals policy PD 1.7 payment in lieu of parking and PD 1.8 viability of hamlets. Moved by councillors Steinoff, Gray, and Williams. Is there any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Request to purchase unopened road allowance at Craig and Dawson. We need a mover and seconder that council declare the unopened road allowance located at Craig Drive and Dawson Drive is a really long roll number described on our plan 3R4483 as surplus to the needs of the municipality for the purposes of disposal as per CA report. General 2025-21. Mover and seconder, Councillor Hinchberger and Blackwell. Is there any discussion? Councillor Stewart, please.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair, being the counselor for Ward 2, you got some properties that are abutting this too, but they're cottage properties. So I just want to make sure, because I was down there and they're closed for the summer or the winter. So when we announce it, I'm not sure how we're going to announce it. Could you please make sure that they actually are informed about this? Because if I understand this right, they get a chance to bid on this too. Is it going to be a closed bid or is it just going to be an open? Not sure, but I want to make sure all the abutment properties, so they don't show up in the spring and realize we sold it without them being informed.
Yeah, we do have the land disposal policy, which the CAO and staff followed, so there will be proper notification for those.
Good.
Municipal solicitor.
Hold on.
Oh, all in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Municipal solicitor, engineer, and/or consultant contact policy review. Need a mover and seconder that the municipal solicitor, engineer, and consultant contact policy be approved as presented as per report CAO General 2025-22, moved by Councillors Stewart and Steinoff Gray. Questions, please? All in favor? That's carried. CAO hiring committee. We need a mover and seconder that council establish a CAO hiring committee to assist with the recruitment of a permanent chief administrative officer consisting of Mayor Craig, Councillor Hinchberger, and Councillor Steinoff Gray. And further, the council approve the terms of reference for the CAO hiring committee. Moved by Councillors Blackwell and Steinoff Gray. Have those terms of reference been developed yet, or? Oh, there we go. They're not on my, I'm sorry, they're just not on this one. I remember. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Good luck.
That's carried. Matters for decision. Okay, reconsider resolution re-Inverheurens lot 2, 3, and 4 Albert Street West. And this motion was deferred from the September 10th council meeting. It was moved by Councillor Hinchberger, seconded by Councillor Williams, that the properties at Inverheuren lots 2, 3, and 4 Albert West be declared surplus to the needs to the municipality, and that council direct staff to commence the process of disposal per policy admin 03, sale and disposition of land policy. So I'm going to turn to our clerk just to refresh our mind exactly what we're doing with this motion.
Through you, Mayor. So originally at the December 6, 2023 meeting, council passed this resolution. It was asked at the August second meeting in August, I believe, that that's where it came back for reconsideration. At that time, council did vote to reconsider it. So council went back to the point in time where we are looking at the motion again. At that point, it was asked to be deferred, and it has been deferred at that meeting, and then it was also deferred at the September 10th meeting.
So we are in effect addressing this motion as it is right here, just brand new from the start.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we need a mover and seconder or anything, or it's the same mover and, okay. All right, so we have a mover and seconder that the properties be declared surplus to the needs in the municipality, and the council direct staff to commence process of disposal per policy. Any discussion? Councillor Steinoff Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I'm actually wondering if we could maybe. No, I'm not actually asking for a deferral. There was a few outstanding questions that folks had on this particular one being the land trust. I didn't know if you had any update for us on any discussions on whether that could go to a land trust and how that would guide this decision on the surplus.
Apologies through you, Mayor. That's the intent of the report, is to help address the question. If you're not looking to dispose of it for market value, it's up to council to make that direction.
I just didn't know whether we had to dispose of it to make that type of correction. That was it was more.
Use your microphone, please.
Apology. It was more a clarification if we chose to do the land trust, how that would negate on what decision we should make on this. Because I definitely wasn't in favor of disposing it for sale through the real estate process. So it would help me get my hand around it so I know what I'm doing. That's all. I just wanted clarification on what, from a process perspective, we should be doing if that's an avenue that we're willing to consider.
Through you, Mayor. So council can decide if they would like, it's already been declared surplus to the needs of the municipality. If council wishes to keep that component of the previous decision, they certainly can. It's just the disposition. You could exempt yourself from your own policy to provide a transaction directly to a land trust. So that's an option for council's consideration. Apologies if that wasn't clear. Sorry.
Can we donate the land if it's not designated surplus? No. So we have to declare it surplus before we choose to do anything with it. There's further questions. Councillor Hinchberger, you were the mover of the motion.
The motion to reconsider. Yeah, just to give my support to reconsider, my motives initially.
No, we're not reconsidering. We're way past that. We are considering the motion to be declared surplus.
Okay. I still believe that the land is surplus to the needs of the municipality. I would have preferred that the land is almost entirely zoned EP2. I didn't see it as being developable. I was hoping that we could get a little return from that, but if that's not possible and it has to find its way into, say, for instance, a land trust as a donation, I'm not against that.
So the other option, like if we don't declare it surplus, it's just ours and then we don't sell it. Like that's one of the other options as well. So there's there's multiple paths to get to the end to a goal at the end. We'll go around the table. Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I like that approach. We have the staff working in multiple directions, and we don't need them to go and find a land trust that might be the answer down the road. For now, we've had it on the market for a considerable amount of time, and I believe that the report said no formal offers received. So for now, I would just take it off surplus and just leave it the way it is, and then we'll deal with it at a later date when we have a lot more time, because I don't want our staff to be trying to figure out this trust and that trust, and so I would just remove it from the market, or basically say it's not surplus, and that would just remove it from the market. Thank you.
Councillor Pranger, you had a comment?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair. I guess I'm just trying. We've gone back and forth on this one, so I'm trying to wrap my head around what our end goal for is it. End goal for it is, sorry. If we just want it left the way it is, then we can absolutely go the way Councillor Stewart just said and keep it, and it can stay and nothing happens to it. I too had originally hoped we'd get an offer, and it, like Councillor Hinchberger had said, it would stay the EP and kind of be mild recreational use because it's EP. You can't do anything else with it. But the municipality and our residents would benefit from the income from that sale. That's what I was hoping, and it's not happening. So I think we have to reevaluate what our end goal for it is. Do we want it just to sit there, or do we want it to be something someone can use? Because you can use EP lands, you just can't develop them in the traditional sense of building a house or whatever. So if we want to do something specific with it, it would be advantageous for us to keep it. If we want to have final say in what happens to it, it would be advantageous for us to keep it. But if we don't care, then as long as it stays EP and isn't developed, then we can still declare it surplus and decide in the future what to do with it, or who to sell it to, or whether to put it in a trust.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I think, so one, I agree with Councillor Stewart in that I don't necessarily want to direct staff to go chasing after land trusts, but I think there's probably an option for us to be open if people do approach us. I think one of the things that a land trust might be able to do that we wouldn't is potentially do some passive recreation and look at doing things like walking trails or other kinds of education or something that they, if there's interest in that, that's kind of beyond our scope. Unless there's someone that's wanting to make a motion about entering into negotiations with land trusts, I think it could be something that we rattle some chains about and see if anybody's interested kind of ourselves and see if we can drum up some interest. But otherwise, I think it should be them approaching the municipality versus us directing staff to kind of go out and find someone in the ether.
Councillor Williams, you had a question?
Thank you. Through you, it might have already been asked, I'm not sure. If you can just declare it surplus and do nothing, I guess. Do you have to take it off the surplus list, or can you just it to be surplus and just do nothing? Is that
clerk or CAO, do you want to answer that question, please?
So if it's through you, if the property is to remain passively listed for potential, I'm not sure anything needs to happen. So if it was just declared surplus and if there is an interest in someone purchasing it, there's really nothing I think council needs to do. Sorry, we'll just wait. He's got it. It's good. If council wants to keep it declared surplus and remove it from the listing, I think you'd have to direct staff to do so. And if you want to just keep it as municipal property, then I wouldn't have it declared surplus.
Yeah. Councillor Steinhoff, Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just a question for our CAO. I was under the impression that there were some groups that had reached out about the land trust directly to staff. So, I don't think this is starting from a cold place, and they actually own the land trust across the road. So, to make it sound like this idea will require work of staff, but I was under the impression that there had been some discussions.
Through the mayor to the councillor, we had an individual reach out to us who offered to make an introduction. We accepted that, but that hasn't happened at this point. So just haven't heard back yet.
So is it possible to have a two-part motion where if we did maintain it surplus, it was on the condition of potentially that the property and over here on lots 2, 3, 4 Albert Street West, roll number be declared surplus to the needs of the municipality, and that council direct staff to enter into negotiations with a local or reputable land trust? Is that something we can do? Or if that's not something that the staff has the appetite for, that's fine. Or not staff, I mean the council table, but.
So if I may, just for some process, there's kind of two options here. If council would like something in the future to be the eventual goal of this property, then at this point in time, I would recommend that we declare it surplus, period. That we haven't directed staff to do anything with it. We haven't told them to sell it. We haven't told them to go to a land trust. It's surplus, but it leaves it in that designation where we can easily direct them in another path. If we choose to retain it ourselves and not go, just leave it as it is, then it would be appropriate, I believe, to defeat this motion so it is not declared surplus. It's just left in the hands of the municipality. The motion can be brought forward again in 6 months or whatever it is, whatever time frame the policy says. But at this point in time, just because there is some question about what the end goal is, that we either support this and declare it surplus, period. That's the end of the motion, or we defeat the motion and it's not surplus and it just remains in the hands of the municipality for future use. Councillor.
So for clarification, because we have no established process to ensure that the land that should be, like, I personally think, like, nature-wise, we should be preserving it. So from my perspective, it would be far better to declare it not surplus, and at the time that we had something in the works that would be in proper usage with the land, whether it's a land trust or what have you, at that point declare it surplus. I just want to clarify my understanding. Thank you.
So if we want to retain this land in the hands of the municipality without declaring it surplus, an option for something else, then we defeat the motion. That would be the process. So the motion is that we declare it surplus to the needs of the municipality and direct staff to commence the process of disposal. All in favor of the motion of declaring the land surplus? All opposed? And it is defeated, so it is not declared surplus. Consideration of bylaws. We need a mover and seconder that the appointment bylaw enforcement officers, Municipal Support Services, Inc. 2025 bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw number 2025-137. Moved by Councillors Stewart and Deputy Mayor Clark. All in favor? Anyone opposed to that? And that's carried. So we have a motion to pass bylaws. We need a mover and we will split this into two different. We'll take this into two different resolutions. The first one we will address number 6. I believe Councillor Williams had declared on this, so we'll split it apart so that there's no conflict if we address the motion all in one big thing, okay? So we need a mover and seconder that the following bylaw be read a first, second, third time, finally passed. It would be the CAO Hiring Committee Terms of Reference bylaw, moved by Councillors Stewart and Hinchberger. All in favor?
Yeah.
And that's carried. And we also need a mover and seconder. So that's 2025-14. It wasn't on here? Okay. All right. So there are 4 actually that we passed this evening that we will address. We need a mover and seconder that the following bylaws are hereby read first, second, third time. The amend zoning bylaw 2025 052 to 2558 Highway 21. We have the Basra Agreement Amendment to bylaw 2025, and there's a different number, and the Municipal Solicitor, Engineer, and/or Consultants Contact Policy Bylaw 2025, moved by Councillors Stewart and Hinchberger. All in favor? And that's carried. We get to the consent agenda. Are there any items here that any councillor would like to withdraw for consideration this evening? Councillor Stanoff Gray, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I'd like to withdraw 8.1 point B Bravo point A Alpha, which would be our environmental services compliance October 2025 report.
Conversation this evening. Yeah, okay. Just hold that thought. Are there any others that you would like to? Anyone else? Okay.
Is Mark still on?
Yeah.
Councillor Stanoff Gray. Discussion tonight or a future meeting?
Please, tonight.
Okay.
It's just quick, hopefully. Thank you. Through you, Chair. I just had a really quick question for our manager. One, the Kincardine wastewater lagoon, we had the suspended solids, looks fairly high number over the total suspended solids. I just wanted to clarify my frame of reference because I thought we had done the sludging activities that would have fixed that that issue, but maybe I'm wrong in that. That's why I wanted to ask the question.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Craig. We did complete the sludge activities in what we call the aeration pond at the Kincardine site, which is the front cell, and it handles all the initial raw sludge into the ponds. From there, that it rolls into two back ponds, which are, while they are there for settling as well, are towards the back of those large ponds would be for finished effluent and polishing. Those two ponds have not been touched for sludge removal, and as Mayor Craig presents his budget, you'll see that we are looking to continue that project again into next year and following years to continue to remove sludge out of the large ponds. We did get the small pond finished, and we do have the aeration equipment back in that pond. So we are back in compliance for the month of October. I reviewed results today on both parameters. So we should, with cold weather, we should stay in compliance to May, and we'll hopefully get at sludge again early in the spring.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Just a follow-up question. If we're starting sludging activities in the spring, will there be any impacts? I hate to say odors, but obviously the odors come. I'm thinking about the soccer season and some of the complaints that we had in that general area. So is that something we're going to expect again? Is there any timing we could do around that to reduce that issue?
Through you, Mayor Craig. So we have had preliminary discussions with the group that we worked with for sludge removal this year. Once budget is approved, we'll reach out as quickly as we can. There's some difficulty in the back ponds that we have in Kincardine, and that difficulty is that they do not have any aeration in them at all. So depending on the type of winter you get, ice can be a factor there because you will need them to thaw off before we can get started. We do believe that the aeration equipment that we've got installed, we're hoping that it will perform better than it has in the past, and that should help the treatment process as we head into the spring and hopefully reduce odors. But as you move to the back and churn up some old sludge, there will be odors related with that as well. So our goal, of course, would probably to be get it out as quickly as we can to remain in compliance and things of that nature. But it will likely cause some odors in that area again.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. One other quick question. It had mentioned in the report that on Tiffin and Scotts Point and Underwood systems for the ground well systems all had exceedances for sodium. And then it also mentioned fluoride exceedances. And I just was curious if there's any concerns we have. I thought we had treatment at least for fluoride. I don't know if we do treatment for sodium also, but I'm just curious. So does that mean that the water that those customers are receiving have the exceedance in that value, or are we treating it before it goes out? I'm trying to understand what the impact is. I know we said we sent out mail on the invoices, like we've put comment with the invoices, but I just want to understand the problem and if this is recurring and it's continuing to raise, because that's a discussion we're going to have as a group.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Craig. Both of those products are naturally occurring in the aquifer. The fluoride has stayed fairly consistent and is just above what the maximal concentrations. As you mentioned, we typically put that on the utility invoices, so everybody on that system is aware. We also actually reach out often to the local dentistry offices because that's where you seem to run into fluoride treatment, to notify those practitioners that if they're treating people off that system, they're getting natural fluoride and don't really need it for needed treatment purposes. Sodium, it has fluctuated a bit. This round seems to be a little higher than previous. Both of those criteria are very difficult to treat and remove from drinking water. So long term, yeah, it's not an easy process to try and remove those naturally.
Thank you, Manager. All right, we need a mover and seconder. The council approve the recommendations contained in the consent agenda dated November 12, 2025, and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. Moved by councillors Blackwell and Deputy Mayor Clark. All in favor? That's carried. Member of council, general announcements. Councillor Blackwell.
Thank you. Through you. Yesterday, I had the privilege of visiting the Kincardine Cemetery for the third annual No Stone Left Alone ceremony. There were almost 80 students, grade 5, 6 students from St. Anthony's who painted little stones with poppies on them and spread out throughout our cemetery, and were able to honor the veterans that are buried there. It was a really special day, and I think our staff for helping to facilitate that visit. I wanted to note that next Thursday there will be a flag raising for the Trans Day of Remembrance, and also that the upcoming Theatre Guild presentation of Into the Woods will be starting that evening as well. So if you haven't got your tickets yet, I hear it's going to be quite the show.
No announcements. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, there was a sort of a government regulation, and you probably heard about it, is that our conservation areas are going to go from 36, and this is a proposal, to 7. And that makes a big change. Right now, we have about 15 municipalities in Saugeen Valley. The new one will be called Huron Superior Regional, and if it goes through and everything, there'll be 78 of them. I don't have all the details. Both us and both myself and Councillor Pronger will be getting our ears full, I think, in the next couple of meetings. So we'll have to see. But general comments are only good until December 22nd. So the government's going to move fast on this, and it'll be quite a change, having 36 going down to 7, and it'll be pretty exciting. We'll have to see if they can pull it off. Thank you.
Thank you to Chair, seeing as Councillor Kavanagh is absent tonight. On behalf of the Kincardine BIA, or more commonly known as Lakeside Downtown Kincardine, the Christmas season starts to get into full swing. There's downtown window reveals from the businesses in the BIA this Saturday on the 15th, and Hometown Christmas is next Friday, November the 21st from 5 to 9 p.m.
Christmas parade.
No announcements.
No announcements.
No announcements.
Bruce County Planning is hosting a housing forum, Port Elgin Plex, Wednesday the 19th, which is next week. It is open. If you go on the website and register for that, there is going to be all sorts of information about housing action plans and some of the challenges the county is facing regarding homelessness and provision of, well, it's full, so don't register for that anymore. Well, you'll be glad to know that the county and lots of registrants are working hard to deal with the housing issue in Bruce County. We're going to be in Port Elgin next Wednesday. We'll all be there. We'll all be there. None from their CAO. All right. So we need a mover and seconder. The council move into closed session pursuant to section 239 of the Municipal Act for the purpose of considering the closed session minutes dated October 8, 2025 and October 22, 2025 and November 5, 2025. Also about a plan, position plan, procedure, criteria, instruction to be applied to any negotiations regarding expressions of interest related to 707 Queen Street. Personal matters about an identifiable individual, specifically physician recruitment. Personal matters about an identifiable individual, specifically interim CAO recruitment update. And a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality. And further, the council return to regular open meeting upon completion. Moved by councillors Prenger and Hinchberger. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, we're in closed session. Once we get
Yeah. First aid. No, it's my contract bills are, I changed, so that just,